in the last 5 to 10 minutes. And then Ross Dellinger last night, and then I've seen others who have now reported on this, the NCAA sports gambling-related penalties have been announced. Of course, we've heard that Iowa State is dealing with some of that, among a few others that have either they know and has not yet been released, but this is happening. So student-athletes who engage in activities to influence the outcome of their own games or knowingly provide information to individuals involved in sports betting will potentially face permanent loss of collegiate eligibility. This also would apply to student-athletes who wager on their own games or on other sports at their own schools. If a student-athlete wagers on their own sport at another school, education on sports wagering rules and prevention will be required as a condition of reinstatement, and the loss of 50% of one season of eligibility will be considered. And then, for all other wagering-related violations on professional sports, whatever the dollar figure, wagers will be taken into consideration. $200 or less, sports wagering rules and prevention education. Up to $500 after that, loss of 10% of the season of eligibility plus rules and prevention education. Over $500, loss of 20% of the season of eligibility plus rules and prevention education. Greater than $800, 30% of the season of eligibility plus rules and prevention education. So 10% would be 1.2 games on the regular season schedule, and then on and on and on. So you're looking at the possibility of, 30% you could lose maybe 3, 4, or no, I don't know about 5 games, but at least it's now in stone.
Yeah, and this is actually one of the things the NCAA has put out that it's pretty easy to understand what the rules are now. I mean, that part of their problem for the longest time was, two places do a similar thing, but you don't really know which one was more illegal because everything was so vague. So now it's pretty, this is written there. Here's what happens. Here's what you do. I wonder how they will be able to, I mean, they've caught up some sweeps here now. I wonder how continually they'll be able to stay ahead of the game as technology gets easier and easier, and if you just have a friend do it and all those different things. But I think ultimately, this is one of the more well-reasoned and easy to follow NCAA rules that we've seen in a very long time.
I'm surprised it's not longer, and I think it's because they understand what world we're in. But, Craig, your thoughts about what looks like from a game to 2 or 3 or complete, basically, you're gone for the rest of your college career?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to know, and I'll never know the technology that they have to be able to catch this. Like there's the whole situation with the Alabama baseball coach, but if some Michigan State volleyball player wants to put a wager on like something, I mean, how do they just have like all their names in a database or something? They're like, oh, Wendy Smith, she's a volleyball player, and boom, they just like, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like I don't know how they could possibly know what every college athlete is up to. That's part of it that's sort of strange, and I guess you just. This, if you get caught, I guess this is maybe a better way to read it. But I don't know. I guess every time the gambling thing comes up, I just must be living under a rock because it's amazing to me just how much that has infiltrated the mindset of everything sports. And, there's a reason why I was banned for so long. And now that everybody's going to make, billions of dollars off of it, they're all rushing as much as they possibly can to shove it in your face at every single moment that you're awake. Gamble, betting. DraftKings, it's everywhere, like every podcast, everything. So, it's obviously something that's unavoidable and in some ways can cause you some trouble. So it needs to be addressed. And, I learned from some of the guys in here and just talking to other people that are a bit younger that, this is pretty prevalent. It wasn't for me because I'm like right at that point where everything's just, there's a cliff we went over, and I got a lot of the old, and then I got a lot of this post stuff too, and I'm just sort of in the middle of it, and so it's a weird spot to be in, but I wouldn't have ever thought to be gambling all that much, and you can't do it here in Texas, but now by the sounds of it, it's just so commonplace that it's like, getting up and going to school in the mornings in some cases for some people who watch
than
sports.
Playing video games.
Yeah, and I know that's always been a part. Like, there's always been your sharks and your people who were gambling regardless. But it's so out there now that it almost feels normalized. And you got to address it, and so they have. And we'll see if there's any big explosive story that comes of this. But you've been warned, and so if you get in trouble, it's on nobody but yourself. And there's not going to be any. Well, I'm going to file a waiver and get my transfer clear. Like, there's not going to be a waiver to file in this part of the deal. So be mindful of what you're doing.
In the same time, and Paul, you add to that if you want. NFL suspended 4 players today for gambling violations. It's infiltrated the NFL. Isaiah Rodgers, Rashad Berry of the Colts, and free agent Demetrius Taylor suspended indefinitely through at least the 2023 season for betting on NFL games last year. Tennessee Titans tackle Nicholas Petit-Ferrer suspended 6 games for betting on other sports while at the workplace. So that's happening in the NFL. If it's happening in the NFL, it can happen. And boy, I always think about Alex Karras, Paul Hornung. I remember, oh my God, how verboten that was. And now, of course, who was the receiver from Alabama? Ridley, who got suspended for an entire year, and there are others too. So this is just and at the same time with Craig and Paul, is you have now as many gambling type commercials as you have ED or cars or beer. Am I right?
Yeah, and that covers everything that guys like to do, I guess. But I don't know how much simpler it can be to, like, how can they make gambling simpler for people now? Because it used to be, hard to do. You had to go to a place that it was legal. Like, you had to physically go there. Or if, you're in a place where it was illegal, you had to, know a guy and go to his, go sit in the booth at the restaurant he went to and be like, I need 50 on the Jets to cover. And that was how it was. Now, all it is you see the commercial, you go to the app, you put in the promo code, and you've made a bet.
Yep.
It takes a minute, 60 seconds total to get it all done. So it's going to be a really difficult thing to police and slow down. But the thing they're going to have to do constantly is just beat into their heads, not worth it, not worth it, not worth it, not worth it, to reduce it, because that's the only thing you can do. Now, if I'm a college student, maybe most of them don't know this yet, but the suspension is one thing, but having to spend part of that suspension in a meeting where they preach to me about not doing it would be a deterrent to me enough to where no. But here's the thing. Most of these college kids haven't had jury duty yet. They haven't had to go to defensive driving. They haven't had to do that. Once you've done that, those things will make you go, well, maybe I don't want to do this just because I don't want to sit around all day doing nothing.
I agree. I agree. It's everywhere. And so it's now, at least they put it in paper or put it on, I guess, numbers right there where players now understand. And it may not always be that simple. There might be more to it. But the banishment is what you would think is always the biggest deterrent, that you could lose your college eligibility.
Well, and to some baseball players throwing $1,000 on some Timberwolves game or whatever the case, I guess on their own games or whatever, then, I think that's one, you probably need some help. If you're willing to risk it and you're throwing a G on some game that you shouldn't be involved in, then it's probably good that there will be some oversight, because you probably need a little bit of an intervention at 20 years old or whatever if you're already doing that. So that's also looking out for the athlete probably in some ways as well. So just part of the deal, part of the landscape now that's different than it was, but it is what it is. So be mindful of that, like I said a couple times already, and don't cross that line, I guess.
All right, so the chat room.